For most of us, self-deception is our daily bread. There are reasons for that which I'll get on to later. But in his major work, Being and Nothingness, Jean-Paul Sartre dedicated a fairly large section to the nature of self-deception. Now, self-deception obviously is a form of lie. When we lie to other people, the horrible fact of the matter is that we know the truth. In order to lie, you have to know the truth. So if you tell someone that, I don't know, it's going to rain today and you know damn well it's going to be sunny, then you can only call that a lie because of the fact that you know it's going to be sunny. Saying something out of error isn't a lie, but knowing the truth and deliberately conveying information that goes against that truth is a lie. Now when it comes to ourselves, the whole situation gets a lot more complex. Sartre rejects the fashionable idea of the time, which was Freud's idea that we have a consciousness, consciousness being everything we are conscious of. He called this ego, and subconscious, where dark and fairly nasty things lie in waiting. The id is our kind of animal consciousness. It's our basic desires. And because our basic desires are not tolerable in mainstream society, then we have an ego that more or less fine-tunes us for existence in society. And the id, which is this subconsciousness, kind of gets hidden away. And so Freud's notion of self-deception was that we hide away our real feelings and intentions in the id, and the ego paints its own picture of things. As I say, Sartre rejected this because he didn't think it was correct, basically. And actually, movements in psychoanalysis that came after Freud, notably Gestalt, similarly didn't really believe in a subconscious. In Gestalt, it was always believed that our real intentions are always visible, particularly in the body, a person's posture, their expression, their gestures. All of those things betray real intentions, although a person may not be aware of those real intentions. And typically it requires another person to point out, gently or otherwise, what a person is really intending when they do something, rather than what they pretend. And of course this division between what we're conscious of, oh, I'm a nice, generous, kind person, and the real intention, which is I want people to think I'm a nice person, because that gives me some social capital. Those two intentions, the unconscious one and the conscious one, are in Gestalt all plainly available to see, but people typically need someone to point it out to them. And it creates a neurosis. So we're all neurotic, wandering around thinking that we're one thing, when in reality we're something quite different. Anyway, to illustrate this, Sartre gives an example which is, I suppose, a bit politically incorrect these days, but well, to hell with that. If you read evolutionary psychology, you'll be able to validate a lot of what he says in this example. So he gives the example of a couple that have gone out for dinner. It's a date, a man and a woman. I don't know if these dynamics apply to same-sex dating, but Let's go to the archetypal example of a man and a woman out for a date. Now, as Sartre says, the man's intentions are pretty clear. He wants sex. And you may object to that. Maybe he wants a few more things. Maybe he wants some companionship. Maybe he wants someone with a like mind. But ultimately, he can probably get that from other males. He doesn't need to take a female out to dinner to get that. So they're out at dinner. The man basically wants sex. Now, where the self-deception comes in is that the woman actually knows this. But that brutal fact is just too hard for her to acknowledge. Might not be quite the same these days, but usually it is. And let me just go into a little bit of evolutionary psychology so you get a context for this. According to evolutionary psychology, men basically want to distribute their seed, their sperms, as widely as possible. It's an expression of power. It's the need to procreate. And why not procreate with as many women as possible? Because that extends your power. Your genes get passed on to way more children if you can get away with it. The British Prime Minister seems to have got away with it. And the woman, on the other hand, so the man's looking for sex, the woman is looking for resources. Yeah, shock horror. So don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger. Typically women are attracted to men that are resourceful and have resources. So the woman is looking for someone usually to create a nest. Now again, the woman may not be able to accept this about herself, so the self-deception may be, oh, I just want sex. But women never, or very rarely, just want sex. They're looking for a man who's capable, who's resourceful, all those kind of things. I mean, it's very easy to see that that's the case, because the whole dining effort is the man's attempt to display that he has resources. And typically men lie about their resourcefulness and their position at work and how much money they have and all the rest of it. So they'll buy a reasonably impressive motor vehicle to try and impress. They'll buy maybe an expensive wine at the dinner just to try and impress. But ultimately the man just wants sex, the woman wants resources. Why? Well, because the basic biology is that the woman is the bearer of new life. She wants a stable environment in which to do that. She wants a nest. So these dynamics are fairly ripe pickings for self-deception. The man may not even admit to himself that all he wants is sex. The woman may not admit to herself that all she wants is resources. Anyway, they go out for dinner. The woman, and Sartre focuses on the self-deception of the woman. The woman is there enjoying maybe the conversation and the nice food and whatever, but she cannot and will not accept to herself that all this flattery that maybe is coming from the male, all this attention and so on, is geared towards one thing. It's just too brutal for her to accept. And so what she does is she effectively, in her mind, believes that this is all about how wonderful she is, how caring and considerate the man is, and so on and so forth. And so she deceives herself. The fact that she really knows what's going on is kind of hidden away. It's not in the subconscious as such, it's there. She knows it, but she's lying to herself. And I'll tell you why she's lying to herself later. Anyway, Sartre goes on to say, well, if the man, so they're out for dinner, it's the first date, and the man reaches over and touches her hand, which is obviously an attempt to try and invoke some kind of intimacy. The woman will see this as just a gesture that in a way she cannot acknowledge, because it's a further move towards physical intimacy. And so, as Sartre says, she may just leave her hand there. She may pull it away if she doesn't want that kind of intimacy, but she may leave her hand there and be focusing on the other stuff, the romance of the situation and so on. And so there's a self-deception. She knows why the man is there. She knows why he's taking her out for dinner. She knows what the gesture is of touching her hand, but she doesn't want to know that. What she wants to know, or what she wants to tell herself, is a lie about the intentions of this man of being kind and caring. And women need kind and caring men, because they need that as a stable environment or a stable background in which to raise children. So, as I say, don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger. A similar situation, and this is not one that Sartre talks about, but it's the same thing. The salesman, say you're going to buy a second-hand car. And by the way, the man in the dating situation, the salesman, are always going to use one weapon more than anything else, and it's called charm. And as Nassim Taleb says, charm is an inoffensive way of causing someone harm. Remember that. Whenever anybody is being charming, it's because they want something. And they know that without the charm, they're not going to get it. So we go back to the salesman. The salesman knows his trade. You go there, he's not going, well, if he's a skilled salesman, he's not going to immediately show you the biggest pile of crap and ask you for as much money as he can get. He's going to try and befriend you. He's going to be charming. He's going to show you attention. He's going to ask you about your kids if you've got kids, or he's going to ask you about what you're doing that day, or he's going to ask you anything just to try and get some kind of empathic feeling going between the two of you. I mean, of course, for him it's not empathic, it's just manipulation. But you may be flattered by the attention, you may be flattered by his jokes, you may be flattered by his interest in who you are and what you do. And then eventually he'll get round to showing you this pile of junk that he's trying to sell. And his aim is to sell you the worst possible, the lowest value possible thing for the highest possible value, or highest possible price. So, he shows you a pile of junk, it's worth $2,000, and he says, look, I really like you, or something, I can do you this for $10,000. I'm going to have to go and speak to my manager about it, because really I should be asking 15. He'll come out with some crap like that, and he'll disappear for 2 minutes, and he'll come back and say, oh God, I'm going to lose my job if I keep doing this, but I can get you this for $10,000. And all that kind of nonsense will go on. And same with the dating situation. As the buyer of the car, you know in your mind, in your reasoning mind, that this guy wants as much money from you for the biggest pile of crap that he can sell you. That's the way it works. And you know that. Your reasoning mind can tell you that, but you don't want to hear that, because this guy has just been flattering you. He's shown you a lot of attention. He's shared a few jokes with you. Sartre. So, just back to the salesman. You may buy this pile of junk because you're overwhelmed with the salesman's charm. And he has, in the most charming way, inflicted harm upon you. Because once you've got this pile of junk, you can't then sell it to anybody for the $10,000 that you've just paid for it. Sartre describes this duality of us knowing what's going on, but not wanting to accept it, and instead wanting to accept the fairy tale version of what's going on, as the transcendence God, I can't read it. The transcendence facticity duality. Transcendence is, in the term that Sartre is using it here, transcendence is not some spiritual thing or anything. It's basically something that doesn't exist. The facticity is, you know the fact about the salesman. He's going to be charming. He's going to try and screw as much money out of you as possible, and he's going to sell you something that he can't normally get rid of properly. You know that as a fact. The transcendence is, oh, this man's so charming, so lovely. Oh, he's got me a special deal, and he's made me feel special, and all those kind of things. So the transcendence facticity duality, the transcendence is you're believing in some kind of fairy tale. The facticity is you know, but yet you will deceive yourself. And this deception, self-deception, doesn't necessarily have to involve other people in this kind of way. It can be you telling yourself that you're the smartest person you know. And you tell yourself that for a very specific reason, when in actual fact you know that actually you're not all that smart. And you will tell yourself this story about being smart just to boost yourself up in some way. Anyway, all this transcendence and facticity that Sartre talks about is understandable, again, from evolutionary psychology or from looking at some of the old philosophers, particularly Spinoza and Nietzsche. We tell ourselves these stories because they give us a feeling of power. And what kind of power? Well, the power to persist in our existence, the power to continue surviving as well as we possibly can. It's much better to tell yourself a story about how smart you are and how charming you are, because that will make you feel good when the reality is that you're not particularly charming and you're not particularly smart. And in the example of the couple out for dinner, the woman will tell herself the lie that this man is caring and sharing and all that kind of stuff, because that's what she's looking for. She's looking for someone who is resourceful and has resources to provide a nest. I should say that I've seen that in reverse. I've seen men looking for a woman who's resourceful and has resources to provide the nest, and the man will become the effectively caregiver for the kids. So it's not necessarily male-female, it's just the roles. The roles can swap. Anyway, the bottom line is that the woman is not looking for someone to have sex with her and then just move on the next day. I mean, women do, but ultimately they're looking for a man who's resourceful and has resources. So they will tell themselves lies about his intention. The fact is, the facticity, as Sartre will call it, or called it, is that she knows he just wants sex. The transcendence is that it's a whole fairy tale about what this guy might provide and all that kind of thing, how caring he is and so on. So we tell ourselves lies, all kinds of lies, so that we feel better in life. The problem is that these lies very often don't serve us very well. So in the example of the salesman, he's your new buddy until he takes the money off you. For the woman, she may decide that she wants sex with this guy, and then be disappointed because he was just some jerk who charmed and flattered his way into that situation. So the self-deception doesn't really serve us. We end up not dealing with reality but with our dreams. There are deeper levels of self-deception. Very briefly, because this has gone on long enough, we can deceive ourselves that we are a person. It's a much deeper consideration, instead of the reality that we are just a set of experiences. Anyway, self-deception is part of our makeup. It isn't always, in fact, very often isn't a very useful thing for us to do, but we do it because we're driven by the survival drive, and we will do anything and believe anything that we believe enhances our survival prospects.